Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today you're joining me in something that's rather special. It's what I would consider to be a poster car when I was younger, and it is a Bentley Continental GT. This is a 2005 model. It has a few of the goodies and the extras over and above what comes as standard, which we'll go through as well, and it also has the phenomenal, even by today's standard, 6-litre W12 engine. That's producing 552 brake horsepower, and it's paired with a 6-speed gearbox, which really does work well for it. Sometimes you think with an older car, especially a prestigious car with a massive engine, is it going to hold to today's standard? And I'm not saying it's going to compete with the newest Bentleys or anything like that, but for the money that you can get this car for and the timeless bit of engineering that it is, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. This particular one is finished in a metallic silver lake, which is quite a nice colour to have. It's almost got a bit of a tint of violet in the paint. It's really quite smart. And then you've got these nice quilted blue leather seats. They almost look black. I'm sure they look a little bit black on the video, but they're blue, and it really sets it off nicely with the wood dash and the oak and everything like that. It's a really pretty colour combination, and I've got to say, when I was first told about it, I was like, oh, it sounds a bit odd, but I really have fallen for it. It's a stunning car to sit in, it's fair to say. I mean, the quilted leather is not one that you see too often, and I'm sure you can see it's in the back as well. It's a 4-seater coupe, and just really looks smart. So this model ran all the way from 2004 up until pretty much 2013. They did have facelifts, and they were needed facelifts of the time. So for example, this information system here, or the entertainment system, it's okay. It's not brilliant. You don't get Bluetooth, and the satellite navigation's really old and clunky and laggy and not quite so great. But you don't buy a car of this age for that to be the priority, really. You buy it for the engineering that it is. It still has the electric memory heated seats, which have actually got the massage function in this one. It still works. You've got all of the goodies that you'd expect. You've still got cruise control. It's a keyless entry and a keyless start on this, which would have been an extra as well. That's really quite nice to have. Otherwise, you have the key that goes into the dash here, and it's okay, but I don't like it when you got a key with key rings and they start dangling about the place. It's a little thing of mine, but I'd much rather have it than it was keyless, so I'm really fortunate that this one here has it. This one's only done 42,000 miles, or just about to clock over to 43, and for a 17-year-old car, of course, that's not much. But in terms of a Bentley, in the Bentley world, there are many out there that are very, very similar mileage, and some are even lower, to be fair, because people buy these cars to run it on the weekend, or they have it as a special occasion car. You'll even see people use them as wedding chauffeur cars, and you can really understand why. Because even as an 05 plate, the presence this thing has on the road is unmatched. It's brilliant. Absolutely love it. I mean, some people say that it's too bulbous or too blary, but as a car enthusiast, I like to think I'd like, pretty much every car, and this really is up there for it. And I was driving this back from where I picked it up from, and I was driving it very gingerly, as I do, because I don't know the car yet, and you don't want to thrash it too much. You've just bought it, and I was only averaging 17 miles to the gallon out of the whopping 6-litre engine that it has up the front. So you wouldn't really use it as an everyday car, because it's so much to run, isn't it? I mean, you've got these massive Pirelli tyres on this particular one. So, and that again shows me that the previous keepers, they did care for it. It's got a full service history all the way through with reputable garages. It's not all Bentley, but certainly reputable garages for it. And it just shows how well loved it's been, and you can really feel that in the drive. You can see it in the inside. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Nothing's particularly warm bad, and I think that's a credit to Bentley's build quality as well. Everything is really quite a cool car to be in, and it's one of those ones as well that if you used to put a personal place on it and you drive it down the road, everyone's going to think, wow, a Bentley. Then they're never going to know how old it is or anything like that, because it's an iconic shape, isn't it? It's only when you sit inside that you think, yeah, maybe it's a little bit older than you'd anticipate. For example, the steering wheel, the later ones have got a nicer 3-spoke steering wheel. This one here has actually come out of a VW Touareg, which I'm sure a lot of you know. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because of course it's part of the VW and Audi brand, but you can just see a few of the switches which they've stolen from another car. And I don't mind it so much, especially if you're looking at a car like this and the money that they are and everything. You kind of have to take it, because that's what it is. But there are also other brands out there. So for example, if you used to go for like an Aston Martin, a lot of it is going to be bespoke Aston Martin buttons and switches and everything. They don't have a massive brand like VW behind them with which they can pinch the parts. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool car. It's effortless to drive. It's a timeless kind of piece of engineering in the sense of the engine's phenomenal. It's only done 43,000 miles, but it really does sing when you want it to, and it sounds fantastic. The throttle's incredibly responsive as well. You've only got to blip it and it just picks you up. And you just think that's pinning you in the back of your seat. And just an incredible car to drive, really is. Oh my God. I caught up to that car way quicker than I was anticipating. That's how quick this car is. I mean, that is just instantaneous power. I mean, it's a twin turbo at the end of the day, and it's a W12. I mean, the engine is a masterpiece. It's one of my favourite things about this car. All you got to do, if you're a true car enthusiast, and I just show you the engine, you'd be like, wow, you could stand and you can talk about it for 10 minutes about an engine, about a block, about something that's underneath the bonnet. You don't even see it from the outside, but it's that kind of bit of engineering. It's that cool that you can just talk to anyone about it, and I do, and I'm sure they're bored of it already, and I haven't had this car for very long, but it's a really cool car to have. Right, so now that I've kind of got over the childish excitement of being in a Bentley, we'll talk more about where the bits are in terms of specification and how well they hold up, and the practicality of the car as well. So there is leather absolutely everywhere in this car. Let this guy go because he's holding up traffic. There's leather everywhere. There's leather on the inside of the door pockets and the door card. There's quilted leather on the side here, all across the top of the dash. There's even leather behind the rear seats going to the rear window. So I think this one has an extended leather package. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. It's kind of hard to go through the brochures and find them of a car of this age to kind of get the specifications absolutely spot on. But there is leather everywhere, and I think that's kind of testament as to how well it's held up as well, because it hasn't really worn very well. It hasn't really worn at all, to be fair, so it's worn very well is what I should say. It's got this beautiful wood. I said it's oak, it might be walnut. I'm not the best on that, but it is really quite smart to have. You've got these really nice sunken dials, and you've got an information system within there as well, which is quite good. You can change your radio stations, you can look at average consumptions. Not really sure you'd want to in a car like this, but you can see your range remaining and everything like that. Just timeless, really quite smart. As mentioned, the sat-nav side of things, it's laggy, it's old, it's clunky, but it's kind of forgiven on a car this age, really. You know, it's the best of its time, I'm sure, but now it's not something that you'd necessarily rely on, but you get yourself a decent phone mount and Bob's your uncle. The buttons, though, they've worn incredibly well. They've got this beautiful chrome finish around the outside of a lot of them as well. The dial all works as it should. You can still control your climate control on the center screen. You can still save your radio stations and everything like that. It does have a phone button, but that is for a Nokia phone that fits within there, so obviously very outdated at this point. The gear lever's beautiful. Really a nice size. You've got this Bentley button on the top as well, and it's seamless. And when you're actually changing from park to reverse or drive or anything like that, it's really quite smart. As mentioned, this one does have the keyless entry and the keyless start, so you do actually have a start button here. If not, you'd have your key in the dash here, which is okay, obviously, but I don't like it so much when you've got a key in the dash and then you've got keys of like house keys or anything like that, and they start jangling about a bit. It's not my preference, so I'm really fortunate that this one does have the keyless entry and the keyless start. The heated seat switches are just down here, and amongst this little cluster here, you've also got adjustable suspension, because it is the all-wheel drive adjustable suspension Bentley. So you can change it to access height, and you can also bring it into a taller height. I won't call it off-road height because it isn't actually that high, but should you need to go across something that you're not quite so sure about, so a terrible road with potholes, which you're going to find, you can put it into that higher height, which is quite a nice thing to have. You also have a spoiler button, which is quite cool as well. That actually comes up at certain speeds, and I don't know what speed that is, I've not been that fast. And then you've also got this adjustable suspension shock as well. It's a picture of a shock, but you can press that and you can change it from comfort to sport. There's actually 4 different settings for it, which is, again, it's nice. I mean, I really have only really driven it in comfort because that's plenty. Got these big 20-inch split rim alloys and these big chunky tyres. You certainly feel as you go. I mean, it's very, very comfortable. It's not unlivable at all, but when you put it into sport, it stiffens everything up, and God, you can't help but just admire the sound of the engine that's coming through. And that kind of brings me on to another point where you do hear the engine, but it's an engine that you want to hear, isn't it? It's not one that you're thinking, oh, the cabin's really quite noisy. But when you've got a big lump like that at the front, it's kind of hard not to have it. But it does have it. I mean, it's got these paddle shift controls as well, which work really well. You can bring it through. There's not much of a lag there at all. It's what you'd want it to be. Knock it across and back, and it puts you back into full auto. Everything works, everything's worn incredibly well. None of the buttons are faded. You've got these lovely chrome switches for the windows all round. The back, got a lovely cabin area in the back as well. I will say you wouldn't necessarily want to be in there if you were quite tall, because being the shape of the car, the coupe, it does come down rather sharp, which you realistically only want to put shorter people in the back for a longer journey, but it still has the capability. The boot is quite big as well. It's just a really pleasant place to be, and I think it really has stood the test of time incredibly well. The leather's worn, as I say, it's worn ever so well, and it's just everywhere. And I think it kind of holds the testament of, like, you're not going to find many modern cars, unless you still go for a prestigious car, that has this level of comfort and just design and elegance and everything like that within. Because obviously you can get older cars now, of which, you know, the top of the range car in 2003 or whatever is kind of to be expected on a modern car, but this doesn't have that. This still has that presence, and this still has that over and above with a Breitling clock face and everything like that, to just give you that little bit more to make you feel special. And I think that's what this car is all about. It's about making you feel special. So I really hope that you enjoyed my review of this Bentley. I've sure enjoyed making it, of which any excuse to drive this car. Oh my goodness, you can't help it, it just happens. So yeah, if you don't mind liking and subscribing to the channel, much appreciated, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you for the next one. Thanks very much.